Hello everyone, my name is Legend Ronnie and this game is Rise of Kingdoms. My 5 cav marches for field battles and my future 5 cav marches that I'm gonna use once I have Attila and Takeda. These are the two commanders that people have requested from me to actually talk a little bit more about them. Even though I have done their first review, I think I talked quite a lot about them in that video, but now I'm gonna include them in this video. So I'm gonna talk about each and every single pair that I use on my 5 actual cav marches, and if you wanna see them in action, I use them in my last Arc of Osiris. So there is the first preview, if you wanna call it like that, or the first review about my 5 cav marches that I use right now. Once I get my hands on Attila and Takeda, obviously my cav marches will going to change. First thing first, just a real quick preview about having an idea, because I'm talking about legendary and epic commanders, about the star cost and about the sculpture cost. Also, you want to keep in mind talents only work from the primary commander, equipment only apply from the primary commander as well. Basically your second in command is just a skill carrier. Now let's get into the pairing. So my 5 cav marches that I can do right now without Attila and Takeda is Belisarius primary with Ethelfled second. Now this is my debuff team, and until I had Ethelfled I was using Hannibal Barca. Now the main reason of using these commanders is because of their debuff capabilities. Belisarius is for 2 seconds, Ethelfled is for 2 seconds, so there you go, you have 4 seconds of debuff. And personally I'm not interested about the attack debuff, because when you're swarming a target with your 5 marches, you care about taking down the target. You don't care about the target doing less damage to you, because in your 5 cav marches you also have double C, which reduces attack, and in the future you'll have Attila as well. What you care about on a target is reducing their defense, but only Ethelfled does this, health reduction as well, so you can weaken the target and take it down faster. Like I was mentioning, before I got a max skill Ethelfled, I was using Hannibal Barca, because Hannibal Barca actually hits up to 3 targets and also decrease defense by 25%. Now my recommendation would be not to include Hannibal Barca if you have Ethelfled in the same time, because even that Hannibal Barca's defense is for 5 seconds, it's only 25%. Now if Ethelfled does a debuff in the same time as Hannibal Barca, it will overcome Hannibal's Barca defense. This defense reduction for 5 seconds is gonna mean 0, because Ethelfled's defense reduction is 30%. So they don't stack, is the best one that always goes on top. Second march, I'm using Baber's primary and Sansu second. Now when I've done my Baber's video, because this is probably the first thing that is going to come up in your mind, I did talk about Baber's and Ethelfled, and if I do 4 cav marches on the field, I do use Baber's and Ethelfled. I did mention they are inseparable. If I do 4, that means that with my 5th I'm doing archers or archer rally. But if I do 5 cav marches on the field, this is the logical way to put Baber's with. I did use in the past Baber's and Sansu, and I was very happy how they perform. So for that reason, for my second cav march I'm using Baber's and Sansu. There is very good skill synergy between them. They are both very nuking oriented. They both do AoE attack on your cavs, which is exactly what you need. And again, Baber's is primary and Sansu is secondary, so you can do just cavalry. So you can benefit from the cavalry tree. Now if you guys want to see the talent trees, I have talked about every single commander in Commander Spotlights. I've talked specifically just about these commanders. You can search those Commander Spotlights and you can get the talent trees from there. Sansu brings skill damage into the battlefield and rage restoration, which is exactly that Baber doesn't have. So it actually makes them a very good pair. I'm very happy how they work. Quite a lot of utilities when you think about how much Babers can bring you when you do field battles. Now my third cav march is another pair that is pretty much inseparable, is Pelagius primary with double C second. Now this is my third Cav March. The reason I'm using this March is because the synergy between the commanders' skills. They both have heal, they both have rage restoration, and Pelagius gives 50% Cav defense once you obtain his expertise, meaning that this particular defense, so you know, it kind of brings you on the level, it actually with a little bit of Cav defense, and with the double heal, I have to say that whenever I go with 5 marches out, this is pretty much the march that it's always almost full capacity, or at least always on top as the health bar. You can see the health bar next to your commander, and Pelagius and Double C, they are always on top with the health bar unless they are targeted, but even if they are targeted, they are pretty tanky because they keep healing and bringing troops back. So yeah, I really like this particular march. Probably on 1 versus 1 doesn't give us many results as people would want, but on the field battles they last. So for that reason, they're kinda inseparable until at some points. Anyway, so this is my third Cav March. And like I mentioned, you can see these marches on my last Ark of Osiris, or I've done in one of the live stream, I've done a Battle Royale event in the Kingdom, and I also used these 5 marches. My fourth Cav marches, and this is where it's getting a little bit spicy or more nuky, is Genghis Khan primary with Minamoto second. Now, I know the question about it would be, why not put Minamoto with Pelagius and then put Genghis Khan with Double C and have the strongest Nuking Cav pair there is? Well, as strong as a Nuking Cav pair there is, or Genghis and Double C can be, it's also the weakest, because Double C reduces the defense of your Cavs and Genghis Khan reduces the march speed of your Cavs. And I also thought about it, why should I try to break something apart like Pelagius and Double C, something that works, try to improve something else? I said, I'm not gonna break something that actually works. There's always gonna be one of the march that is gonna be a target on the battlefield, so I'm pretty sure my Genghis is always gonna be a target on the battlefield. I'll keep him with Minamoto. If he's not gonna be a target, well, WTF to that, they're gonna wreck things up. So my fourth Cav March is gonna be Genghis and Minamoto. And I can tell you from now, even if you watch the recording of my last Ark of Osiris, I can tell you from now that you're gonna notice that Genghis and Minamoto is the first march that usually goes down. Nothing I can do for now. However, I want to try to do the marches. I literally don't have the commanders to make my marches a little bit tankier. So this is my fourth one, Genghis and Minamoto. Synergy, very good synergy between the skill, both Cav commanders, and super nuking oriented, both of them. Now my fifth is Saladin primary with YSG second in command. And this is also my rally march. So for that reason, we needed to use YSG. YSG is 2 universal commanders, and I'm gonna go in a couple of those type of commanders as well, probably close to the end of the video. YSG is a 2 universal commander, and I had to include him somehow in the marches. His AoE capabilities and damage capabilities are too good not to bring them on the battlefield. Saladin primary is because of his tankiness. Now, the one thing that I was afraid, and the one thing that kind of held me back of using Saladin primary, was the fact that support is not going to do enough damage, and the support is actually not doing enough damage. But because you have YSG, which gives you 50% skill damage bonus and 100 rage restoration, because you're using Saladin primary, so you're using Cavs, you're not going to benefit from 100% archer attack, but you do benefit from the rage. From support you have rejuvenate, which is 150 after each skill, and then you have YSG's rage restoration as well, so they kind of bring them and make them like a machine of skills, which is pretty damn good. And with the 50% from YSG, it's actually diminishing the fact that you don't have a skill tree, as surprising as it is. First time I used them was in the Battle Royale game that I was talking about in one of the live stream, when everyone brings 5 marches. I brought 5 Cav marches, and whoever survives last wins the chest or the legendary chest from the Kingdom. So I basically won, and the highest results I had was with Saladin primary and YSG second. The pairs might have been a little bit different, the other pairs. Saladin was with YSG and their performance was great. Again, Pelagius was with Double C, and they were my highest march full health almost all the time. Pretty crazy. And on rallies, you can also see the rallies on my last Ark of Osiris. They were pretty crazy. So these are my 5 Cav marches. Again, the reason of Siding being primary is also because of his tankiness. From the conquering, you get the buckler shield, so that's 29% counter-strike damage taken reduction. You have skill damage taken reduction 30%, plus you get from the cav and support another 21. So there's quite a lot of skill damage taken reduction that you can add to this build. Pretty insane. A lot of cav attack and defense bonuses, and 1700 damage factor with his primary skill. Saladin is really powerful, and with YSG as the second in command. Now the next thing would probably be my future 5 Cav marchers, and including Attila and Takeda. Now I do have to say, when I've done the review about these 2 commanders, I did mention that these 2 commanders, they are pretty much made to work together, and that is very true. I kept checking and reading their skills and looking at it. Not much testing. Some players have done some testing for me. I've seen a couple of battle reports, and I'm pretty happy about Takeda. I kind of have to say that he might just be a must-have commander in all armies, but we will see if that is true or not once I put my hands on him. If you have them in your army but not necessarily together, it works the same way. Because basically what Attila needs on his skills is pretty much the primary skill from Takeda, Fierce as the Fire, the debuff. So he can do more normal damage, because Attila doesn't have any kind of skill damage. That's all he does. He does a lot of normal damage. So as long as Takeda can debuff from another march, you have Attila from other march as well, which can also do damage. So let's go with the first march that I had in mind of pairing up Attila. Attila primary with double C second. Now, the reason behind it putting Attila primary and double C second is because double C has the rage restoration that Attila doesn't have. To pair Attila as a second in command, I don't actually see that as an option. I actually see Attila working as primary and not caring so much about the skill damage. I'm going to use Attila primary, and I'm going to use double C second. That 100% rage restoration every now and then can actually bring that slight edge, so Attila can actually keep casting his primary skill as often as possible. Considering his amount of normal attack, to actually benefit the maximum from Attila, you need the attack tree. The attack tree has quite a lot of nuking capabilities. That's the reason Alexander is also so great on the battlefield and is so useful for the same reasons. And I went through his 4 skill of Attila's, and considering the chances that he has for 2 turns, again, these 2 turns, that's a big deal. I would say that one of these bonuses, it's also on all the time, and this is all damage, 50% or 100%. I would say that this is gonna go on all the time. There's pretty high chances for this amount of bonuses for 2 turns. He does have cav attack 40%, and double C also brings cav attack as well, so that brings them to 95% cav attack, which should definitely increase the normal attack damage, right? You want to bring the best of the best so you can do as much more normal damage, because you want to power up that. You want to power that normal attack. So I actually think that double C second to Attila might just bring you a lot of normal attack. He also increased his normal attack and counter attack damage by another 30% when he's using his primary. I would say that's pretty dope. He also reduced the enemy attack by 50% for 2 seconds. So that's actually really good, because he only does it for 2 seconds, then is double C who does it for 3 seconds and is the second in command. So this is my first future cav march that I have in plan, Attila and double C. Now I'm gonna include Takeda, and my second cav march that I'm gonna do in the future will be Genghis Khan and Takeda. Now the reason behind it is very simple. Genghis Khan is pretty weak. He does pop skills quite often, and I also want Takeda's skill to be popped as often as possible. So if Takeda is second to Genghis Khan, that means that Fierce as the Fire will be popped as often as possible, meaning a lot of debuffing on the target for normal attack. And again, it has been tested This debuff on the target is for all marches. So once this debuff has been applied on the target that you're nuking, all other marches that are swarming the target, they get this benefit and they do extra normal damage. Now each march does some normal damage. Would make a little bit sense to empower that, isn't it? Plus Takeda also brings Cav attack, which empowers Genghis Khan skill damage, and the Cav defense, a little bit of healing and some skill damage, normal attack and counter attack. So it makes Genghis Khan tankier and making him lasting longer, which I believe that's exactly what Genghis Khan needs. Because right now he is a target, he's pretty weak, he's going down very fast, and I believe that Takeda will just empower that slight edge of Genghis. So this is gonna be the second march, Genghis and Takeda. Now the third march that I'm gonna make is gonna be Saladin and YSG. I'm not gonna separate these guys. I have already talked about them. There's no reason to mention them again. The fourth march is gonna be Minamoto and Alexander the Great. Now, like I said, this is my future 5 Cav marches. Until I'm gonna max the skills of Alexander, I'm pretty much or probably gonna have to use a different commander. But this is my future 5 Cav marches. So this is what I'm talking about. It's gonna be Minamoto primary and Alexander the Great secondary. Now I did mention about some very universal commanders when I mentioned about YSG, and Alexander is one of them. The only thing that Alexander doesn't benefit from if you pair him with other marchers is the frontline commander, infantry march and attack bonus. So you pair him with cabs, you pair him with archers. This is the only thing that you're not gonna benefit from. 1700 nuke, this is just something you definitely don't wanna skip. A little bit of shield and a little bit of shield to one of your other marches. This is actually great. I'm not sure if this is gonna give Minamoto the protection he needs. I'm gonna have to find out myself about that once I'm gonna start testing them. Attack and defense to your marches when shield is down. Usually the shield is kinda down all the time, so that means that 40% attack on the cabs, right? That means more nuking for Minamoto and Alexander. But this is the cherry on top of the cake that I want on the battlefield when I'm swarming with my 5 marches. You have Takeda debuffing, you have Belisarius debuffing, you have Ethelflaed debuffing, and you have Son of Amun debuffing as well, which is a pretty powerful debuff, to be honest. 30% damage to up to 3 targets for 4 seconds. Imagine if all these things are gonna stack up, and that's exactly what I want. You know, I just wanna chew down any target as fast as possible, and I think that's gonna be possible. So yeah, Minamoto and Alexander is gonna be my 4th Cav march, and we have to go to my 5th Cav march, which obviously I have to include Ethelflaed. Now this is gonna be options, and I have thought about it. First option, and probably logical option, would be to go with Babers. Also slow the target, benefit from Ethelflaed expertise, have mobility, Cav attack 20%, no more damage and more power to the Cavs, Ethelflaed nuking as well. I thought a little bit better because in the past I used Pelagius with Ethelflaed and they were very tanky, because Ethelflaed does bring some counter-attack damage reduction. So even if Pelagius is a target, I usually don't retreat him. I never retreat him because I need Ethelflaed's debuff. So I keep him on the battlefield, you know, to fight as long as he can, and I put Ethelflaed as a second in command. So this is gonna be my 5th Cav marches in the future. It's gonna be Pelagius and Ethelflaed. I did use them in the past with only Cavs. They were doing great, surviving quite a lot on the battlefield, so I was pretty happy with the performance of these two, also bringing the debuff that I need. Now that's pretty much all I have to say about my current 5 Cav marches and my future 5 Cav marches. Like I mentioned, I also want to talk a little bit about the pairs, you know, give you some ideas why I'm pairing this with that and why I'm doing this and that. I also mentioned about some very universal commanders. So I already mentioned YSG, I already mentioned Alexander. I can also mention Julius Caesar, which it's right now it might be a commander that I would integrate in my Cav marches if I would have him max skills. Mehmed is also another commander you can integrate in your army if you don't have some of the commanders that I kept mentioning. 5-5 Mehmed can be very useful. A lot of nuking, attack, skill damage and AoE. Not that much crazy AoE, but still some AoE. I already mentioned Barca, Alexander, and Osman can also be included. Something that I haven't included, but I have way different commanders. I don't suggest including John unless you don't have any other option, because just buff the cav defense is nothing that crazy. The rage restoration is good, but no, having a commander just for that, I'm not 100% sure is worth it on your 5 marches. If you're free to play, then you might definitely want to include John. If you have a lot of legendaries, then you should definitely have options and not include John. Frederick. I have a max skill Frederick, right? So I want to answer this question as well. I'm gonna leave this at the end. The question is, you have a max skill Frederick and you're not using it in your 5 cav marches or in your future 5 cav marches. Well, he is pretty universal. He is one of those commanders. I'm gonna include him in that category. But from all my testings, he doesn't do so great with cavs. From all the testing that I have done with Frederick, he doesn't do so great with cavs. Now, I have no freaking idea why is this behind. So I put him with Genghis, I put him with Minamoto as well, because, you know, he's a max skill. This one goes 100% chances. That's pretty great, which is pretty much the greatest thing that Frederick has, is his primary skill. I was like, you know, 1000 healing factor every now and then will bring back some troops and so on. It's just not enough for cavs. Is not enough. 15% troops capacity, which is very unique. Only him and Julius Caesar, they have this, which is brings you a march on the battlefield to a 340k capacity if you use him as a second to one of these cav commanders. The only way I would see Frederick fit on the battlefield would be probably second to Saladin, but that spot is already taken by YSG. The reason behind it would be because Saladin gives him the protection and the rage restoration enough so Frederick can keep pop up his skills. Any other commanders that I've tried, they are pretty weak. Frederick is weak as well in defense, and this just brings you a huge bagload of severely wounded. So I cannot find a utility for him. I did try him. He's one of my first max legendaries, him and YSG. They are the first two that I maxed. But again, I cannot find a utility for Frederick with the cavs. If you don't have any other options, you can use him if you have him max. But if you have a max Frederick, you should definitely have other options. And another question to answer, is a 5-5 Frederick useful? No. Frederick is one of those commanders that needs to be max skill before you want to use him. And I recommend using him as a second in command. Without expertise, 80% chances. Primary skill is usually the most important skill of any commander. You don't want to bring a commander on the battlefield that gives you chances to deal damage. You need something that gives you guaranteed damage. So it needs to be max skills before you use him. Right, so that's pretty much about it. About my 5 cav marches on the battlefield and my future 5 cav marches. Any question you have, you can drop them in the comment section below. This is your boy Legend Ronnie, signing off. Peace out, yo, and take care.